Cops of Reddit, what is the most what the f happened here moment you've experienced?
Show up to a trouble unknown call. Teenage-looking girl walks out the front door as I arrive, and sits on a chair in the front listening to an iPod. This was pretty disarming for me. She was clearly not distressed at all from whatever the trouble unknown was. I didn't even disturb her as I knocked on the front door. I can see an adult male through the side glass by the door. He has a look of absolute terror. As he reaches the door, a crazed-looking woman attacks him from behind, biting his shoulder like a zombie. I would later learn this is his wife. I did holy shit. Dispatch, give me the channel and get me more officers here now. I open the door and the fight is on. Pull this woman off and wrestle her to the ground, face down. She's very small framed, probably 5 and 100 pounds max. I'm a foot taller and 80 pounds heavier. She's screaming and flailing. I grab hold of her right arm, attempting to put it behind her back for handcuffing, but she is supernaturally strong for some reason. I've got both hands on her right wrist now trying to control her and she's not giving at all. I try pain compliance, muscle gouges, anything to give me an advantage. No response, still fighting. It felt like this was going on for a long time, but in reality it was a few minutes. Finally backup arrives, and he immediately goes to grab her left arm, seeing what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm finally able to get a handcuff on her wrist and pin it to her back, and my partner cuffs the other wrist, but she slips out. Small frame, small hands/wrist. This happened a few times in a row, and finally out of frustration I yelled, just clamp the cuff all the way down, we'll adjust it when she's under control. I finally get her cuffed, but she's still flailing and screaming. Other officers arrive at this point as well as paramedics. They're unable to assess her at all really. The husband tells us they bought some cheap weed from a sketchy dude in town and after smoking it she flipped out. I assume it was laced with something. He said he smoked too but didn't have a reaction, so who knows. We had to drive this lady up to the hospital in a patrol car. She calmed down a little, but the entire ride she was rambling about nonsense. The hospital was prepared and had several large nurses waiting, and we got her strapped down to a bed. I told the staff about the weed and said good luck. When my adrenaline was gone, my forearms were so sore, they felt like rocks from fighting with this tiny woman. Moral of the story, don't smoke shit you bought from the town crackhead.
I'm taking a slightly different approach in answering this question. A couple of months ago, I got a QA, questionable activity call. It's a catch-all for anything suspicious. The caller stated she believed someone had snuck into her backyard, climbed up onto her second floor deck and then left an imprint of their d**k on her sliding door. I show up to the call about 5 minutes later and she's mad at me because I didn't schedule an appointment to come over and her kids saw me. She didn't want her kids to think something bad had happened. After we get past her anger towards me for showing up, she shows me the glass sliding door in question. In all fairness to the caller, there was a sizable smudge and imprint on the glass. However, the imprint looked nothing like any I've ever seen. In fact, the imprint looked really similar to the dead bird laying on the deck next to the door. When I pointed out the dead bird and explained my belief that no had been placed on her door, the caller became incredibly irate and told me she moved to our city because it was supposed to be very safe. But now she was thinking of moving away because naked people throwing dead birds at her house was more than she could handle. Realizing I would not be able to rationalize with bird, I left and wrote my report. Some people don't deserve to call 911.
Edit. Thanks for the silver. Edit 2. Thanks for the gold.
One time we got a call about a minor wreck in a highway corridor. We get there, I'm handling the accident. 100 yards down there is a car on flats. And another further down from that. Unrelated to the accident. One of the drivers walked back to us and told us a sketchy guy had been stopping at these cars to offer his help in fixing the flats. The theory was that he threw something on the road to flatten the tires so that he could help and get money from the drivers. I'm stuck at the back end of this mess, on the radio trying to get another unit to detain the shady guy. All of a sudden I look over and there's a guy in nothing but a hospital gown and an M4 hanging out of his arm, just tootling along the shoulder. The nearest hospital was several miles away, so I have no idea how he covered the distance with nobody noticing. So here I am with 1. A car wreck, 2. A guy possibly flattening tires on purpose, and 3. An escaped hospital patient. All completely unrelated, on a major highway late at night. A friend of mine is a cop in the UK and his story is more WTF as he saw it unfold, but missed how it all started. It was his first week out on patrol and he was assigned to an experienced partner. They respond to a burglary in progress and are told that a nearby dog unit was on the scene already. When they arrive at the property, they hear a commotion outside that's clearly between an officer and a suspect, and they open the garden gate to assist the dog unit. What they then witness is a suspect face down on the grass, an officer stamping on the suspect's back whilst holding his arm up near her hip and shouting "Stop resisting," and the police dog absolutely going to town on this guy's buttocks with his teeth. The suspect is, unsurprisingly, struggling and resisting and then ends up kicking the dog. The dog then latches onto the guy's leg, starts ferociously tugging, pulls it off and then runs towards the new cops on the scene with it. It turns out that was a false leg, which no one except the suspect knew at the time, and my buddy the cop said he just froze whilst trying to figure out how the hell he calls this in and whether or not he should retrieve the man's leg from the police dog. Too many to choose from, I forget them all. So how about non-fatal ones that are kinda upbeat? Car in a pond. Guy bought the car, hated it, got so angry he literally drove it into a pond and they left. Ticket for littering cause I jumped in to see if anyone was in the car. Car wrecked in a tree, like up in the middle of the branches. I just don't know how. Half missing decomposing dead body from natural death. Turned out the many cats in the house ate half that person. Okay, that one's gross. A ride along had a warrant and got tased by the officer they were with, trying to run from. That was a more of WTF moment hearing it over the radio. Guy going through a divorce and decided to renovate his house at 2 a.m. with a sledgehammer, by taking out all the walls and furniture, cause his future ex got awarded the house. Didn't arrest him, was still his house, just keep the noise down please. I was a passerby during a public argument between two strangers. I passed by before the police rolled in. What I witnessed, a foreigner trying to fight with a Greek vendor. They started throwing each other around. People step in to separate them but they won't let each other go. One guy loses his pants and underwear. The other guy is trying to swing at his balls. A young girl rushes in with a chair and breaks it against the head of one of the randoms who tried to separate them. An older grandma throws her shoes at the girl. The guy who got hit by a chair throws the shoes back at the grandma who gets hit square on the face. The younger girl takes her shoe off and smacks his head again, while the grandma runs over pulling the girl's hair. The guy finally gets a grip on the other guy's penis, while one other guy who is separating them is biting on his head trying to get him to let go. All the while a woman is screaming from the balcony above them, "You thief, stealing balls from children. Thief. I saw you. Give back the balls to the children, yay. I'd kill her man." Edit, damn first ever award. I'd like to thank my mom, my dad, the wonderful silver giver and of course the Greek vendor and butt-naked guy for making all this possible. Not a cop, but have a story. So a couple of years ago, I was in a fender bender. I'm driving down our small town main road, late at night, on the way home. Small town, so to keep noise down at night, all the traffic lights along the main road are set to green as default, and red to the sides, so that big trucks don't have to stop and use their noisy brakes. I'm tired after a long drive, so I'm cruising at speed limit, green lights all the way for me, when out of nowhere a car suddenly comes screaming into the intersection ahead of me, leaving me with no time to even react. I T-bone them at an angle as they're entering the main road at quite a speed, and ricochet off. My car spins around twice on the slightly damp road before coming to a stop without hitting anything else. The other car doesn't even slow down, and keeps driving on, leaving me sitting there feeling like I'm that random innocent car that always gets wrecked in a movie when the villain makes his escape. Skip ahead until the authorities arrive. Cop gets out of his car, sees only my car that's almost wrecked, and absolutely no damage to anything, anywhere else. He looks me up and down, sees blood rushing down my face from a head gash from destroying my rearview mirror and goes, "What the f*** happened? What the hell did you hit?" Some questioning later, while the medics are putting a bandage around my head, the other car arrives, with only minor damage. The cop must have seen the relief on my face as the other driver walked over and explained that his wife was going into labor, and he had to get her to the hospital. While we were busy at the scene, she gave birth to a beautiful healthy baby girl with no complications. He then left quickly to come and explain, and he even showed us pictures of his newborn on his phone. I didn't press charges and his insurance paid for fixing my car and my medical bills. The WTF on that cop's face was epic though. Edit. Didn't think it would be necessary, but some clarification, this was in South Africa, they didn't have medical, so calling an ambulance would have cost them a small fortune. The guy said he saw me getting out and waving my arms around after the accident, so he knew I was okay. Apparently they also didn't think it was a bad crash, since they were still driving. Yes, he was an idiot emo, but he had his family to think of. I would probably have done the same thing. And the hospital was literally 2 blocks away anyway. Yes, he made a mistake, but me pressing charges after an honest accident like that would only wreck this new family. Besides, no one got seriously injured and his insurance covered all the damages, so no harm done in the end.
What was your favorite story? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to leave a like.